health concerns. Students and teachers in Manhattan had to be taken to the hospital after worries they've been exposed to PCBs.
Sex assault arrest. Police say they found the man who attacked two young girls in Queens.
And a big win. The Knicks even the score in their playoff series with a blowout victory at the Garden. Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Elizabeth Caledon.
I'm Louis Dodley. Nearly a dozen students and 2 adults had to be taken to the hospital today after concerns they might have been exposed to PCBs in their Manhattan school.
Our education reporter Lindsay Christ has the story.
It was around 11:15 Tuesday morning. An alarm went off in the Harlem school building housing PSIS 123 and Harlem Success Academy 5. Nearly 1,000 students had to get out quickly. A light fixture in a third-floor classroom had begun smoking. It's one of hundreds of school buildings where lights contain dangerous chemicals known as PCBs.
The firemen came, but I knew it, and the police and the ambulance came.
Ambulances to take 9 students and 2 teachers to Harlem Hospital because they were in the room with the leak. PCB experts say this is the first incident they're aware of where students and teachers were taken to the hospital after exposure. Parents say they want all the light fixtures replaced immediately.
That gotta go, because that's ridiculous. And my child, he's a baby. If anything happens to him, I'm gonna lose it.
The DOE says it contacted the parents of the students taken to the hospital right away. Other parents were given a form letter at the end of the school day, a legal requirement after a leak. The letter did not mention that students and teachers were taken to the hospital. Several parents say they're upset that they weren't called as soon as the building was evacuated.
This is the second time that something actually happened in the school that they did not actually, inform the parents. As a parent, the parents should know what's going on with their kids inside a school building.
This is at least the 5th leak in this building. In April, there was a leak in a second-floor classroom. The school is already on the DOE's list of those with the highest priority to have all of their light fixtures replaced, but there are hundreds of other school buildings with the same top priority. PCBs were banned in 1979 after experts found exposure affects the nervous and immune systems. The city has agreed to replace all of the light fixtures in schools, but the mayor says it will take until 2021. A group of parents has sued, saying the 10-year plan is too long. The city tried to have the case dismissed, but in late March, a judge ruled the case should go forward, saying that cognitive development of children is at stake. In Harlem, Lindsay Christ, New York 1.
Police have charged a man with sexual assaults of 2 young girls in Queens.
Our Michael Hertzenberg joins us from South Ozone Park with the latest details on this story. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Elizabeth and Louis. Sources say police arrested 25-year-old Lee Samuel at a friend's apartment in northern Manhattan. The girls prosecutors believe he had sexual contact with were just 7 years old. The district attorney's office says 1 week ago, Samuel approached one of the girls as she was tying her shoe. He then allegedly tapped her on the butt. Hours later, 2 miles away, investigators believe he asked another child to play a game, then exposed himself and engaged in a sexual act with her. Police had said a man of the same description exposed himself to a 13-year-old. So far, Samuel has not been connected to that case. Still, residents in South Ozone Park have obviously been nervous and are now somewhat relieved.
Thank God I have a 6-year-old little girl, so I'm glad, thank God they caught him.
I have a daughter, 10 years old, and I was very much happy.
We all as a neighborhood and as a community, we feel great that he's been apprehended. And God willing, it's him.
Samuel awaits arraignment on charges that include forcible touching, engaging in a criminal sexual act of the first degree, and endangering the welfare of a child. If convicted, he could spend up to a quarter century in prison. From South Ozone Park, Michael Hertzenberg, New York 1. Back to you, Louis and Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, thanks, Michael.
New statistics show police are stopping and questioning fewer people, but what those numbers mean depends on who you ask. Our Bobby Cusa has the latest on the stop and frisk controversy.
One thing everyone can agree on is the numbers. Through the first quarter of this year, stop and frisks are down by more than half compared to last year. Crime, meanwhile, is also down, with murders down 30%. Evidence say critics that stop and frisk has no bearing on crime prevention. Mayor Bloomberg takes a different view.
That's the results of this.
Bloomberg says the data show, in fact, stop and frisk has worked by deterring crime. And less crime means less reason for police to make stops.
The number of suspects going down because crime is going down. So you would expect that the number of stop and frisks would go down.
The police commissioner, meanwhile, attributes fewer stops both to changing deployment patterns and new training. He cautioned against drawing a straight line between the number of stops and crime rates.
There's a whole host of initiatives that address the crime issue, but some people want to make it a one-issue matter. It's much more complex than that.
Stop and frisk, it seems, is a non-stop source of controversy. Not only is it the subject of an ongoing high-profile class action lawsuit in federal court, it is also a main focus of this year's race for City Hall.
The Democratic candidates all want to scale back, if not eliminate the practice. Christine Quinn, who's come under fire from rivals for supporting Commissioner Kelly, says the new numbers show reining in stop and frisk won't jeopardize public safety.
That shows us we can stay the safest big city in America without overly aggressive policies being implemented that causes us real tension between the community and the police.
What seems clear is no matter what the data, Bloomberg will continue to bristle at critics and stand firmly behind Kelly.
Who do you want to trust in terms of setting our policy when it comes to policing strategies? Him or a bunch of armchair critics and ideologues? I know who I want to trust.
In Manhattan, Bobby Kuza, New York 1.
Questions are emerging tonight over the indictment of an officer who shot and killed an unarmed Bronx teenager last year. Officer Richard Haste was indicted by a grand jury in the death of Ramarley Graham. He was killed after being chased into his home by officers who had just seen the teen take part in an alleged drug deal. But now the judge in the case says the DA's office may have told the grand jury not to rely on what fellow officers said to Haste before the shooting, including warnings that Graham had a gun. Officer Haste's attorney says his client's state of mind at the time of the shooting was directly affected by thinking Graham was armed, and he says he's seriously concerned the integrity of the grand jury process was compromised. The case has been adjourned until next week, when the judge will hear arguments on whether the jury received the right instructions.
The son of a decorated civilian NYPD employee is now being charged with her murder. 35-year-old Lonnie Scott also faces assault and weapons charges. Police found his mother, 60-year-old Sylvia Scott, dead in her Queens apartment Monday afternoon. She had multiple stab wounds to the chest and neck. This comes a day after her son was released from St. John's Hospital into her care. Police arrested Scott at 116th Street and Beach Channel Drive after they say he made statements implicating himself in the crime. Last year, Sylvia Scott was named Civilian Employee of the Year for the NYPD Transit Bureau.
Police are looking for a group of men believed to have carried out a possible bias attack near Madison Square Garden. The NYPD put out these photos of a person of interest in connection with the attack. Police say two men were walking on 8th Avenue near 35th Street around 6:45 Sunday night when four men began shouting anti-gay remarks at them. One of the victims has a broken nose and the other's hand was injured. The police commissioner says three of the four men were wearing Knicks apparel.
A huge fourth quarter for the Knicks tonight sends them to Indiana with their playoff series all tied up. After blowing a double-digit lead in the first half, the Knicks exploded in the fourth, outscoring the Pacers 33-13. The Knicks would win it going away, 105-79. That ties the second-round series at a game apiece. Both teams will travel to Indiana for the next two games. Game 3 tips off Saturday night. We'll have much more later in the show in sports.
All right, time now for a first check of our forecast, and you have to admit we've all been a little bit spoiled the last week to 10 days with some glorious weather. So a little rain tomorrow, we're due.
And we need it.
That's true.
Occasionally we do need some rain. Todd Kirkman joins us now with a first look at our forecast. Todd?
Hey, good evening, Lewis. Good evening, Elizabeth. Indeed, we do need some rain, if only to help to wash some of the pollen and dust out of the air that has just been raging over the last week or so. Of course, the trees and the grass and such could use some rain as well. Currently, we are dry. Temperatures are in the low and mid 60s across the 5 boroughs. We are going to settle back in the upper 50s. Temperatures will get right on top of the dew point. Probably feels a little bit humid to you outside right now, and it should with that dew point running up up there like that. Notice some showers down to the south. A few of these will arrive in the city later tonight. And we are going to find showers continuing for a while tomorrow, even a couple of thundery downpours. Otherwise, overcast skies and some fog with that wind out of the east at 5 to 15. High temperatures with some drier weather prevailing afternoon, peaking in the upper 60s. We'll talk about the rest of the week and much more in just a few minutes. Back to you, Lewis and Elizabeth.
All right. Thank you, Todd.
Thanks, Todd. And still to come on News at 11, who should run the schools? That was the topic of tonight's mayoral forum as the Democratic candidates traded barbs yet again.
Crucial vote. The City Council will decide tomorrow whether or not to force small businesses to grant employees paid sick leave.
And the Knicks weren't the only local team looking to draw even in their playoff series tonight. Tom McDonald has highlights of tonight's Islanders-Penguins game later in sports.